All right, welcome back to Conscious Construction, the Conscious Enneagram podcast. I'm Abby Robbins.
And I'm Kimberly Culbertson.
And today we're talking about type 8 in relationship.
The best.
I'm having a surprising amount of resistance to this episode. All of a sudden I'm like,
doing the 8s today.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh, let's get
I'm just
stoked.
like, I'll just make it, I'll be stoked for both of us.
Okay, perfect. I think just where I'm at in my own personal work right now is I'm not particularly stoked about this whole thing that is me as an 8.
Well, you can be wrong.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay.
Thank you for that, forceful cheering up. So when we talk about types in relationships, we've been talking about where they struggle. We're going
to talk about why 8s are great and wonderful and fabulous and maybe even the best type. We'll do a little song about 8s, and then we'll talk about where they struggle, what their work looks like, and how we can support them.
Yeah. And of course, I would just immediately go to where they struggle because that's where I'm at right now in the struggle.
Yeah, in the struggle.
But
I understand, because we did recently do the 7 episode.
Yeah.
And I definitely was driving home oh, wow, I said some things.
I said some stuff.
And the vulnerability hangover, so I understand.
Yeah, so, let's just get this over with.
No, that's the wrong energy. No.
Okay.
2. Let's talk about 8s.
Okay, let's talk about 8s.
So, Abby.
You're going to have to start us off with what they do well. Because I'm not feeling it. I'm really not. So I appreciate you feeling it for me.
Let's talk about what 8s bring to a relationship.
That is good.
That is good, which is many things.
Yeah.
It's funny because for Halloween recently, you guys did your worst character trait, and you went as intensity. And it has been simmering in me. I actually really like your intensity. Yeah. So I think, like many things, sometimes you can weaponize it, but sometimes it's the gift.
Even too much of a good thing is a bad thing.
Yeah. So I think part of what 8s bring into any relationship that they're in is an energy and an intensity and a gumption and a push. I often joke, because we are obviously in a close friendship, and I often joke about having a what would Abby do bracelet. Especially because I'm in the head center and I sometimes get really stuck in overthinking or stuck in anxiety and fear. And then I'm just kind of in a paralysis of thinking. And I know I need to act, and I will literally be what would Abby do? And sometimes I just ask you, what should I do? And so you have access to a person who goes into action so fast. And so that can be a real gift in relationships, because you have this person who can use their energy to push you into good things. Yeah. And unlike some of the other assertive types, I feel like 8s have the least envy. They don't need you to be not doing well. They're just as excited for you to do well as for them to do well. Yeah. And they're pushing for things to be great.
I'm not going to experience the FOMO of the 7, and I'm not going to necessarily have the same kind of level of competition with a 3. Right. I think generally 8s are very good sports, as long as in the lower levels of health or whatever you want to say. It can get a little twisted, but I think generally 8s are pretty good sports. They like competition for the competition, where somebody like a 3 likes competition to win.
For the winning. Yeah.
For the win, right? If they don't win, they're not going to be having as much fun as if they did win. Where an 8, I think there's a lot of space, and it's not to say that 8s don't want to win, but there's a lot of space. The 8s are more concerned with the level of competition than who won.
Right. Yeah. They want to know that they got to go all out.
Yeah. And they want to know that they went all out against somebody who was going all out.
Yeah. They don't want to win because you're letting them win. That is a real affront.
That's also for me personally, but also in my family of origin, we have a saying that is the only thing worse than beating a Robbins is letting a Robbins win.
I was a Robbins, a Baskin Robbins, a bird.
Like my last name.
And then I was oh, your last name. How long have we been friends? I'm what?
Welcome back to Conscious Construction. I'm Abby Robbins.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But yes.
So I think another car on the Wire 8's great train is that 8s are very honest. So depending on your typology, you may not love their level of honesty. Yeah. Like it might make you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But you are rarely, if ever, in relationship with an 8 who's mad at you and you don't know. Mm-hmm. Or who's like, you're just going to have to figure out why I'm mad at you. You know, like some of those games that people play of like, you can tell they're upset, but they're not owning that they're upset. And you're having to like...
There's a lot of like directness and I would say like emotional honesty. Yeah. With the 8s that like, there's not really a time... I mean, there might be times where like, I don't really know what I'm feeling, and so nobody else really knows what I'm feeling. But if I know what I'm feeling, you know what I'm feeling. And sometimes you might even know what I'm feeling even if I don't know it.
Right. But it's not like a dishonesty or a manipulative game ever. Like if you're not telling us how you're feeling, it's because you don't know. Yeah. Because we, in this assertive stance, our feelings repressed.
Well, and I don't think that like manipulation, like being manipulative is necessarily something that like happens for 8s until you get into that like quote unquote lower level of health. Like and that certainly can show up, but I generally think 8s are not particularly manipulative. They are maybe a little more standoffish and like don't want other people to like mess up their stuff. Sure. But I don't think that like any kind of manipulation is necessarily like very natural to 8s.
Yeah. I think the Enneagram, and you could describe it as 9 ways that we are manipulative. True, in the sense that we, we're all trying to get our needs met in one way or another, and the lower health we get, the more we'll like...
Be shady about that?
Be a little shady, yeah. But they're not going to play like a beat around the bush kind of, like I'm going to hide what's really going on kind of thing, unless they don't know what's going on. But they're still not hiding it, they just don't know. And I really appreciate the directness. It's one of the reasons that we get along really well. Yeah. Because I like a literal sentence. I want someone to tell me when something's wrong so that we can figure it out. I don't like when people are mad at me, but I really don't like not knowing if someone is mad at me and having to wonder and having to try to find the right way to approach that because they won't really own it.
Yeah. And I think generally, I mean, I know that this is true for me. I don't stay mad. Like if something's happened, like whether it's with like between you and I or me and Danielle or like literally any of the relationships that I have, like as an 8, it's like I'm kind of like I'm pissed about it, and then we talk about it, and then it's over. I'm not holding a grudge. 8s don't hold on to that. They're moving into the next thing, and like if this is fine, if you heard my feelings and we talked about that thing, right, the emotional realness piece of the conflict resolution, then we can move on. Yeah. 8s aren't going to hold a grudge. They're not going to be like stewing over something for weeks or months or years. Like that's so uninteresting.
Yeah. And I think related to that, like the third car on the train is that, I forgot the third car now.
We lost the third car.
Lost the third car. What was I saying right now? I don't know. We're going to have to come back to it.
Okay. We'll come back to that third car.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I think that...
I got on your track instead of my track. It's okay.
I'm changing tracks. I do think one thing that 8s bring to the relationship that is good is that there is a real willingness to work. Like there is something, because 8s are so geared towards struggle and so geared towards like diving into the hard thing and kind of pushing themselves against that. I think that when relationships are hard, they can really thrive and like make something really positive out of that. I think that 8s don't shy away from the hard work of relationships. We might shy away from like feeling things, which is often a big part of the hard part of relationships. But I think there's a lot of willingness to be engaged in whatever relationship there is. Like an 8's not going to like flake out on a relationship.
Yeah. I actually think you might be less comfortable when a relationship is not hard. Like I think that 8s have an expectation that something will be hard, that something will be a fight. And when there's not enough fight,
then they will do shit to make a fight, which is dumb. I do that all the time.
We're not on that part yet, but yeah, like they might disrupt the peaceful moments because they don't know what to do with those. Yeah. But they're not going to shy away from the fight.
Yeah.
Okay. The other car was relatedly, when 8s are upset and angry, they burn through that fast, and so people who've experienced an angry 8 tend to be afraid to confront them or to challenge their ideas. But I think that is generally not a problem for 8s.
No.
Because if you confront an 8 with a true thing or a good idea, I don't know any 8s who will not just be like, oh, okay. And then they're done. Like, they're not upset about it because what they want is for things to be done well and right and good. Not in like a rigid way, but like a lot of times 8s are taking the reins because something is not being handled well. So they'll step up and handle it. But they don't mind not handling it if someone competent has a better idea or if somebody is doing it. They're happy to actually go like, oh, yeah, let me support your idea. And so I think a lot of people, because we're in our society uncomfortable with anger, we shy away from sharing our ideas or countering ideas to 8s. Yeah. But it's to our detriment because 8s are actually very reasonable people. They have an intensity. Yeah. But that intensity doesn't mean that they can't take feedback. Yeah. 8s actually take feedback really well because while just like they don't expect a relationship to not be hard, they are willing to do the work and they expect that they're getting it wrong sometimes. And if you can show them that, then they're like, okay. Yeah. And they'll just pivot and you are maybe shaking in your boots because you just went up against this big, scary 8, you know. And
but
they're
8s
like,
also
cool.
welcome the stepping up. Like 8s, and this, we can talk about this and it'll be a great transition into how 8s struggle in relationship. But in our Enneagram community a couple months ago, I was talking about, somebody was asking about like 8s and apologies, and it was this like whole thing. And I was like, well, it doesn't make sense to an 8 because 8s live in the octagon, right? They live as if they're always sparring with someone, right? And so like, if you're not going to step into the ring, you don't really exist to an 8. So an 8 is like, they've got the door wide open, but you've got to step into the octagon, right? Like that's what 8s want. And we can talk about how that's also kind of not a great thing because then 8s treat every interaction as if you're sparring, and then somebody comes in and just wants to say something and an 8's like kick them in the face, and then they're like, why did you kick me in the face? And the 8 was like, well, why didn't you try to kick me in the face? We're in the octagon. But no one else knows. The octagon doesn't exist to anyone but the 8.
And it's like if you imagine a gym where people are sparring on purpose. Yeah. Everybody's having fun. Yeah. And they're ready for there to be like some hard hits. Yeah. But they know what's going on. But if you were to throw me in an octagon, it would be like tragic, and I would be like, "What is wrong with you?" Yeah. And so I think a lot of people interpret that sparring energy, which is as playful.
It's like the difference between like sparring and Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Like, finish them.
Right, like everybody's experiencing 8s as if 8s are in Mortal Kombat, but 8s are like, no, like I still got my little like helmet on and I'm just sparring. I'm out here having a good time. I'm learning. I'm growing. Come on, aren't you? But that is not how other people see those interactions.
Right, and that can be not only challenging in those interactions for those other people, but it can be really challenging to 8s because 8s hurt feelings and damage relationships when they weren't trying to sometimes.
Yeah. And really it's really jarring like to get that feedback because I'm so tuned out. I'm speaking from my perspective personally. Like I'm so tuned out to those pieces, right? Because again, I'm sparring. Yeah. You're not, you are trying to get hard hits in. You are trying to like learn. You're not trying to like destroy anybody. Yeah, you're not trying to do any damage. But you're engaged in this very particular way. And so when I get that feedback, like me personally, when I get that feedback from other people that like I've hurt their feelings, I've been mean, I've been whatever, I'm like, it's wildly disorienting to me because I have like it feels like such a massive misunderstanding. Yeah. Like And we use the trope all the time, like bull in a china shop, like that sort of thing. And I think that's a very, very real experience for 8s. But it's like, we didn't choose to go into the china shop, right? We're the bull in the octagon where it makes sense.
The china shop stepped into the octagon.
Yeah, exactly. Like somebody turned the octagon into a china shop, and now I don't know what the fuck's going on. That's really what it feels like.
Yeah, and I do think it's worth noting that we talk a lot about the anger in the 8, but the 8 is intense even when they're not angry. Yeah. And so even when the 8 is just very excited, people can feel bulldozed. And that's pretty much true with any assertive type. You don't have to be angry for someone to feel like there wasn't space for them in the midst of an 8's intensity.
Yeah. And that I find, man, it's going to be a therapy session for me, isn't it? I'm just going to embrace it. But I always find that so frustrating. Okay. Because I experience the world as like, there's no way I could fill up the world. Right? There's no way that I could take up all the space. Like and to be in a situation where then people feel like I've taken up too much space and they can't step in, I'm deeply frustrated by those conversations. Like literally the universe is expanding. There is space for you wherever you are. So just like words of wisdom from an 8, like an 8 never wants you to back down. Never. Right. They want you to step up into your space. And it might be scary because we have a lot of energy, we have a lot of excitement, a lot of anger, a lot of literally everything that is big and loud. But like my thought process around that has always been, if I can take up space, everyone can have space. Like, I'm not doing it to like take space away from other people.
I mean, that is definitely, as also a fellow assertive type, right? That's definitely true. But you
get it.
I also think our ability to step up into a space that's already intense, as assertive types and people who are feeling repressed, doesn't like it. It's harder for people who are not feeling repressed to step up into that space of intensity, and to generate the energy to come and meet you. Is legitimately hard for some of the types.
And I get that. I've learned that through this work. I think another thing that's important to talk about in like 8's not doing well in relationship is just like the access to feeling is so low. It's so low. And that just means that like the access to like straight up relationality is also very, very low. Like I see this a lot with my kids. Like I'm not good at just like vibing at home with my kids. I don't like that. I want us to be doing something together, right? Like, and I think there's a lot of value in that. Like I'm not saying that that's always a bad thing, but I think especially for more feeling types, like it can feel like a real like missed opportunity, like a real like conflict that like it's hard for me to just be with people. Like I don't have that muscle like naturally. I've been working out on other muscles, like the doing muscles.
Although I would say you've done a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure.
In the being muscles with yoga and yoga therapy.
Yeah.
Your Enneagram work. You hold space for people really well.
Yeah.
But I know that is something...
It does not come naturally.
It didn't come with your 8 typology.
No,
it wasn't part of the package
in the
deal.
box. That was like, that's aftermarket. That was an upgrade I did later. Yeah, that like has taken a lot of time and energy to like cultivate. Yeah. Like it is possible to do that as an 8, but again, like it takes a lot of slowing down. It takes a lot of energy. It's not the first go-to. And it's not the most like efficient way of operating for me. It's not the most efficient way of relating for me. Like I much prefer the like side by side relating, not the, and I mean, my 1-to-1 does want some of this like direct, intense eye contact, but it's always like that's almost like a smokescreen to real intimacy.
Well, and you only want that with a specific group.
Yeah.
People, like not everybody. Yeah. I think one thing that eights struggle with it. Well, I mean, you're my closest eight, but I think it's good for people to know that when you do get into an emotional, relational, heart-centered conversation, that is the space where the eight feels most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so the conversations that are needed to have real intimacy are also the conversations where they feel the least guarded, the least armored. And then the feelings come through anger. Yeah. So you're going to get anger first, and if you can get under the anger, there's another feeling. Yeah. And until eights have done some work, most of what they experience is the anger. It takes work to go below it. Yeah. And if they're feeling vulnerable already, they're just going to be reactive with anger. And so that's a struggle for the eight, and it's helpful in relationship to know that like the very thing that you want in intimacy, which is this emotional connection, is the space where you might be the least able to show up. Yeah. And it's gonna be the most vulnerable, the most scary. And often if you're in a relationship with someone for whom intensity is what makes them feel the most vulnerable, you have some relational hurdles, difficulties to get over. Yeah. And so I think that's a space of struggle because eights do want to be in relationship.
Yes. No, I think that is very true, like across the board. And I think it's such a struggle because it doesn't feel safe.
Right. And that safety, it takes a long time to build, and it takes almost no time to decimate. Because one of the core beliefs of the eight is that people can't be trusted, that people will betray you. And so the trigger for breaking trust can be really light for eights. Yeah. And then rebuilding a broken trust can be
almost impossible. Yeah. Like next to impossible.
Yeah, you have to be working with someone that you value enough to do that level of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if we could talk about what eights do wrong in relationships all day long. I feel like that's
any of the numbers really, but
that's the headspace I'm in currently. But in thinking about, we're kind of jumping ahead to like how we support eights, but there is this piece of like, I know that I can only be really vulnerable with people who I have a lot of emotional trust with, right? Yeah. So we've talked about in previous episodes, like high context communication versus low context communication. Like I need to be able to trust what you say, like the exact words you say. I need to trust that you're not that you're not incongruent within yourself, right? That you're not twisting something, that you're not, turning something inside out to put a smiley face on it or whatever. Like I need to know that like, and I think this goes beyond type. I think there are types that I do struggle with this specifically because it's so ingrained in their type, but there is something about like, if I know you're doing your work, then we have something to work with. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you're also naming a lot of the types will try to soften a hard thing, and eights never want that. They do not want to feel manipulated while you're telling them something hard. Yeah. So like, just say the hard thing. Yeah. Say it fast. Say it like clearly.
Say it clear.
They don't want to go like, what are you really saying? And they don't want their hard thing to be sandwiched between two nice things. They just want you to be like,
just the hard thing.
This is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously eights have a lot of work to do in relationship. I have a lot of work to do in relationship.
So what is the work when we did the 7? We talked about like, what is the work looking like for you now? Yeah. So are you willing to do that?
Yeah. And like every 8's gonna tune out and be like, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Stay in, 8.
Stay in. No, for me, the thing that there's kind of like 2 big pieces for me right now, and one is like feels very type specific and does feel more kind of very much about how I relate to people in the world. And I've been working with this idea for, better part of the last couple years, really. Okay. That it's not my job to change the world. Oh. It's my job to feel the world. And that's just the worst fucking thing in the world. It's just so, I hate it. But it's like, especially when we look at like, it's like, you know, I like to consider myself like somebody who's proactive and somebody who is like fighting for justice and somebody who's like doing, right, all of these things. And that is very much me, and that is very much the type, right? But in the last several years, especially, there's been a lot of frustration for me around like, well, how do I actually make an impact? How do we make change in this very broken system? And just the answers that I've been getting back from teachers and from, you know, spirituality and all of these things, it's just like, and I can't say that this is for everyone, but I could probably say that this is for every 8. That like, your job in the revolution is not to change the world. It's to feel everything that's happening, which means feeling a lot of pain. It means feeling a lot of sadness. It means not projecting your own vulnerability onto the world around you, right? That then you have to save, right? But like feeling your own vulnerability with the world's vulnerability, and then you can save each other.
Right. I think part of what is intrinsic to what you're talking about is that we didn't talk about in the what 8s bring, but what part of what 8s bring is that they will fight for you. Yeah. And that when you have an 8 ally, like anyone who's trying to mess with you better watch out, you know? So
coming.
But that is a heaviness that 8s carry, that they have an expectation, not just a desire, but an expectation that they will jump in and save the day. Yeah. And that jumping in intrinsically means because they value autonomy so much, they don't necessarily want to jump in collaboratively. Yeah. They want to be the rescuer. And because of that, a lot of the solutions that would be lasting and really impactful require collaboration and trust. And when you collaborate, you automatically give away a little bit of your autonomy. Now, part of what you're doing is dependent on someone else that you don't know if they're going to carry it out. You don't know if they're on the same page and all of those things. And so, I have to tell you, I don't get the part about the feelings.
Not surprising. Surprising.
But I definitely get, like, it's all of our job to save the world. Yeah. But it's no one person's job. Yeah. And a lot of times, especially for assertive types, we're doing something important that we view as important. But if we're really honest with ourselves, part of why we're doing it so hard is to not do the feeling.
Exactly. And I think that's really what I'm learning, is that like my job is the feeling. And like it's so hard for me on so many levels to like say that and mean it and like not experience it as some sort of like cop out, and like, you know, like there's so many, it's just like excuse after excuse after excuse why I shouldn't be feeling and why I should instead be doing X, Y, and Z. Like I need to be doing these productive actions that move the needle. And like what I'm finding is that nothing is moving the needle more than me allowing myself to feel what the world is feeling.
Can you articulate why that feeling piece is important in the moving the needle? Because I can't, so I'm not trying to. Yeah. I just am curious, like if you do have the wording, I would like to understand it better.
Yeah. Well, I don't have great words for it because I'm not great at it, but there is something about this. The way that 8s relate to the world is that they are separate from the world, right? I am not a part of the world. I am myself. And the world is over there. All other people are over there. Okay. I'm not connected, right? Okay. And through that disconnection comes all of the shit. Like, that's where the misunderstandings happen, right? And like what's happening in this like very small kind of like relational way between me and like one other person, it's amplified in the world, right? Like all those little miss whatevers, they get amplified as they get bigger until we're fucking like, you know, the planet is heating up and we're all going to go extinct and there's genocide and there's all this fucking shit that's happening in the world. And it's like, my instinct is to keep myself apart from that so I can, and I am doing that. I'm justifying that by saying I'm going to save it. But really all I'm doing is attempting to save myself, but cutting myself off from the world. And by
without looking at yourself as the vulnerable party.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And if I can feel what the world is feeling and feel my own vulnerability and feel and allow myself to be a part of the world, then like something different is happening for me. Now I can't give you, and this will happen. Like, I don't fucking know, but like, I just know that what I've spent the last 34 years doing doesn't work. And it kind of feels like my last and only option in a way that like I've literally exhausted everything else, but feeling and trying to be more sensitive and more like deeply responsive to the world around me, that is my work.
Yeah. It feels like what I'm hearing is that by doing the work of feeling, you are becoming part of the world so that we can work together towards a better world. And that can be our work. Yeah. But when you are not doing the feeling piece of it, then you are doing it from apart, you know, as the assertive stances, like we are moving against the world. And there's only so much we can do to save a thing while we move against it. Yeah. And so without doing that feeling work, you can only ever... Yeah. And then you're using the work to avoid the feelings versus doing the feelings, the harder work of feeling in order to get to a meaningful work of like restorative action.
And I think that the feeling is the restorative work. Like, I don't think the feeling is getting me anywhere. Like, I think that that's a false assertive stance premise that we like to set up. Well, and I'm going to only say this because I know, like, I've worked on it and I've unpacked this part for myself, that like the feeling is the work. It's not a vehicle to get somewhere else. It is the work. And I don't necessarily know how to describe what that work is getting me, but I just know that it's mine and I have to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Which is like not the most satisfying answer, but like I'm really deep in this right now, and this is where it's at.
Okay, so you said there were kind of two things, and the first thing is to feel what's going on in the world. Do you have a sense anymore of what the second thing was? In terms of what your work is looking like?
In relationships. Well, I was more mentioning like kind of like my like internal thing. And it's really stemming from this idea that, like, I have recently had this, like, revelation that, like, I really deep down somewhere believe that, like, I don't deserve good things. Like, I only deserve struggle. And, you know, you hinted at this talking about, like, where Eight's struggle in relationship is that we, like, we're very equipped for the struggle and we know how to do work, but, like, we don't know what to do when, like, there's good things. And like, man, that is so real in my life and so up for me right now that it's just so frustrating. But like, there is something about the unpacking of the need for struggle.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
That just, it feels so core to having any good thing. You know, and so I think that that's a really big piece of it, that like knowing that like you don't have to struggle for things. I think Eights just kind of intrinsically assume anything good is a struggle, and so if
it gets easy, it must not be good.
Yeah. And that's a real fucking problem.
Especially in a relationship.
Yeah.
If the thing that is good is the relationship.
Yeah.
Then it's easy to like subconsciously be sabotaging the relationship.
All fucking time. All the time. It's deeply, deeply frustrating to be like, just like constantly pulling the rug out from under myself because I don't feel comfortable being at ease. And that's, that's really what I'm working towards, and really what I want in my life is more a sense of ease. Like, I have proven to myself that I can work hard and I can struggle and I can fight and I can make things happen. I'm good. I know that. And I think every 8 listening to this knows that. And like, maybe you should try something else. And that's what I'm trying to do. And it really sucks.
And it makes it sound easy, but it's not. It's not easy, and it's especially not easy for the 8.
No.
And one of the things that we talk about is in our friendship, we've talked a lot about joy and being able to celebrate joys. But that comes very hard for the 8.
Yeah, because I don't do that. Like, that's not part of my like internal wiring right off the bat.
Yeah, and it kind of it dovetails onto what you're talking about, because if there's something to celebrate, you have now reached ease. You have reached something good. And if you can't accept and celebrate something for being good, if you can't like sit in the goodness of it and just like feel the goodness, then you can't stay there. You can't ever arrive. You can only strive.
Yeah.
And
that's really what it is in the 8 type structures. Like, it's a striving, it's a struggle. And I've gotten to where like I can celebrate, but it's like struggle, celebration. And like I would really like to like just not struggle and like be at ease for any sort of like extended period of time.
Yes.
And that I rail against that so hard because it feels vulnerable. It feels unsafe. Like it feels like, and I don't know how to describe, like, in my body, I feel unsafe when things are not. Well, when things are good, and it's just like I hear that, and I'm like, God, that's so fucking dumb. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
Well, and I do think, especially for an 8 who is wired for struggle and wired to move against, when something feels really good and is in a good place, there's a fear that the rug is going to be pulled out from under you, and because of the 8 typology, you don't want anybody to get the chance to pull the rug out from under you.
So I'll just do it to myself.
You'll just do it yourself.
Take that, world. God, it's so dumb. So dumb.
It's not dumb. It's just we all have these things.
I mean, I think it is dumb. And I think we all have dumb things.
Yeah, I guess we can. That's next season. Why every type is dumb.
Dumb things and the Enneagram. Yes.
Anyway, we all have things that like when we say them out loud, we're like, oh shit.
God damn it. Yeah.
Did I just say that?
Yeah.
Dang. But becoming conscious of those, quote unquote dumb things that we have ingrained in our belief structure does give us choice. Yeah. And I think when we're talking about the work of the 8, 8s in relationship need to be able to be at ease. Yeah. For, nobody gets ease forever. Yeah. We live in this real world. Yeah. But to enjoy and experience ease in an extended sort of way.
When it's here.
When it is here. Because most types need ease for them to feel safe. Yeah. So like, especially if you're an 8 and you're in a relationship with another type, the thing that makes you feel the least safe is the thing that makes them feel the most safe because that ease is what most types are going for, and especially 7s. I don't know if I should say most types, but 7s are like, yeah, dude. So,
but everyone is looking for ease in some area, I think, except for 8s. Like 8s are not really looking for ease in anything, but like I think about, like, in my marriage, like Danielle's a 4, she has a lot, like there's plenty of things that like Danielle wants to be intense about and wants to have like turmoil about, but there are certain things she wants to have that to be easy. And we can't get there in a relationship if I'm constantly like, no, it's gotta be hard. It's gotta be hard. It's gotta be hard. And that's a real problem, like in any relationship. But let's shift to how do we support 8s?
Yeah.
We've talked a lot. I'm ready to be on talking about me. So let's talk about how you interact with me.
Well, I'm sure you'll have ways to weigh in terms of like what makes you feel supported. But I think one like PSA, if you are in a relationship with an 8, is they do not want you to like cower in a corner from their intensity. That will feel like disrespect.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people who are uncomfortable with conflict or are uncomfortable with intensity will back off, and they'll keep backing up. It actually raises the intensity of the 8 because they're now trying to reach you and you're further back.
Yeah.
But what makes the 8 feel respected is if you will come meet them. And that is not always possible for various reasons. But to know that, it gives you some freedom to come back at the person with whom you're experiencing what might feel uncomfortable for you in terms of intensity or anger. And I think that's a really important tool that you have to get comfortable with using if you want to have a really reciprocal relationship with an 8. It's easy to have relationships with 8s where they do a lot of things and you receive, and it's easy for people to fall into a sort of codependency that way because both people are kind of comfortable with it. But if you want real reciprocity, you want real intimacy. The 8 is going to have to do their work of being able to pull back that intensity in certain relational structures. But then that person who's uncomfortable with intensity is going to have to do their work to come into the ring. And that's really important for the relational space for the 8.
Yeah. There is another piece that I want to like tell a little story about because another 8 told me this story as a client I was working with, and they were out like walking their dog, and they have like a big dog, right? It's one of those like kind of, I don't know, it's like maybe like a pit lab sort of mix, very similar to my dog.
Okay.
And they were taking this dog out on a walk, and this dog like came up upon like a little dog, and the little dog was scared of the big dog, and the little dog like attacked this big dog. And my client was like relaying this like story to me, and they were like, I've never seen my dog look so sad and confused. Yeah. And there is this piece where 8s are often the big dog.
Yeah. Yes.
And we are not like to no fault of our own. Like we didn't choose to be the big dog. This is just who we are.
Right.
And there can often be ways in which the world responds to us that we really don't understand.
Yes.
And I think that if you are in relationship with an 8 or you're working with an 8, like especially if you're on like a peripheral relationship with an 8 or you're trying to build something with an 8, the big scary dog is not always big and scary. I mean, they might actually be big, but like not scary, right? Like there is something that like what's on the outside of the 8 really doesn't match the inside.
Yeah. There's a real tenderness that in a lot of circumstances the 8 doesn't want you to see. But if they want to really be in a relationship with you, then they'll show you their tenderness, and you have to hold it with tenderness.
Yeah. But you will never see that if you're in attack mode.
Right.
Like if you are, we talk about like coming up to step up to the 8s, but if you're stepping up, in attack mode, or you're stepping up in a much more aggressive way, like if you aren't, there's a way to like step up and to show yourself and to be vulnerable, right? Like there's a way to like match the 8's energy without like being over the top with it, because it's, like if you're coming at it and you're being aggressive and you are like intentionally trying to like hurt someone or get a point across, that sort of thing, the 8 is not going to understand what's going on. Because even though, I'm a bull in a china shop, I'm not intending to hurt anyone. I'm not intending to break anything. And I can take responsibility for where my intention and my impact are like skewed.
Yeah.
But a lot of people then respond to the 8 with the intention of harm.
Yeah.
And I think that is like a real, it's a real missed opportunity for people to kind of really reflect before they interact with an 8, because it's true. Like 8s step on a lot of toes. We fuck up with a lot of relationships. And then people will take that and internalize it and then spit back something even worse.
Right.
And so I think there is something about like really understanding, we've talked about this in other episodes, like really understanding that the intent for harm is not there for most 8s in most situations.
Right.
That doesn't say that you don't hold them accountable for their impact, but
if you're angry about something and you're talking about that with intensity, that's not the same as talking about it with disrespect or with violence.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times when people are uncomfortable with intensity, when they try to be intense and match intensity, they come so hard that it is confusing, and you're like you said, you're sparring, you're not in Mortal Kombat. So if you're sparring and then you find yourself suddenly in Mortal Kombat, it's like, wait, what are we doing here?
Yeah, like this is not what I signed up for.
Whoa, yeah.
So I think that's a way that you can be really like supportive of 8s. And man, just like give us time with emotions. We're real dumb with feelings, like just real dumb. And yeah, it's like I'm really trying, but like God, I'm not great at it.
I don't think in any other podcast we would refer to a type as being dumb. So I think
I said me. You said
we were real dumb.
I meant me.
But it does, like we said, there's these ways that every type is dumb.
I don't think that any of the 8s out there are concerned about this. They're like, no, we're dumb. It's cool. When it comes to relationships, I'm being protective,
and the 8s are like, we don't care.
No. But thank you for stepping up and being protective. That was nice of you. I appreciate that.
But I think when you are in a relationship with an 8, and they are trying to access their feelings, to give space and to really appreciate and respect that they're stepping into what, like they're so comfortable in the arena, but they're not comfortable. I don't know what the nice place is, like the spa, the stands, the garden, Yeah. And so to actually hold that not only with care, but like just with respect. Like I appreciate that you are willing to be this real with me. Yeah. When you're not in fight mode, So like the 8 is never going to hold back on what is wrong with the world, But like when the 8 is being vulnerable about what they're struggling with, if you don't hold that space well, it's going to be hard to stay in.
It's just a reinforcement that like I can't do this.
Like you're not allowed to be soft. Yeah. And I do think your pit bull analogy is a really good one. For those of you who, people call these like the bully breed dogs. Yeah. And a pit bull can be an incredibly scary dog. Yeah. Especially if its people are threatened. And that is true for 8s. But if you've ever known someone with a pit bull, or if you've had a pit bull, they are one of the most sensitive dog breeds. They really...
They're just soft and squishy.
They
and
really
sweet.
Care so much.
I'm going to drop a picture of my dog, Ziggy.
Ziggy
like
is
in the comments, you're like, I'm going to put her... You're going to see her because she's so sweet.
Yeah, there is a sweetness about pit bulls that you just don't see on your average walk when they're on alert, So as you get into a relationship, when you build trust with an 8 and they are able to like not be on high alert and just relax into how they are, then they will show up fully and with that same intensity, but like with that softness that they don't show everyone. Yeah. And that softness is a gift, so treat it like a gift.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think we've done it. Thank you for that. I'm going to go have my own vulnerability hangover. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're an 8, I'd love to hear what you thought. Yeah. We can commiserate about feelings. Drop a comment down below. Again, if you're listening on the audio version of the podcast, please leave a rating and a review. Let folks know if you're liking what we're doing, and maybe consider becoming a patron over on Patreon, where you can pay to support the work that we're doing and keep it going. Yeah, the spiel is so much harder today. Like after that episode, I'm like, I don't even know what to say.
Well, I will remind you, we are coming up on the end of the season.
Yeah.
And we are about to have our first ever in-person Conscious Enneagram Retreat workshop.
Yes.
I keep calling it a retreat, but it's not overnight. It's a day-long workshop. Yeah. It's definitely a retreat kind of
retreat
space.
Feel. Yeah.
Wait till you see this space, guys.
It's so great.
It's amazing.
But there's a link down below to register. You can come in person or you can come online. It will be live streamed, interactive live stream. So if you have questions and comments, those can come up and we'll have somebody like taking care of that for us. So you get to actually feel like you're part as if you were there in person. There is a discount if you're bringing a friend or a partner or a coworker or whoever else somebody you met on the street. So check out that link below to register. We would love to see you whether in person or online. I think it would be great.
And every in-person participant gets Abby's book and our book that's coming out this month. So
lots of good stuff.
Lots of good stuff to be had.
Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see y'all in the next one.
Cheers.